Hello, Africa, and welcome to Impact Stories on AAU TV. AAU TV, the voice of higher education in Africa. Today, we are going to celebrate one academic mentor on the continent, and he is in the person of Professor Crispus Kiamba, who is a former Vice-Chancellor of University of Nairobi. I wouldn't go much into it because I would want him to tell us more of himself. We'll go for a short break, and when we come back, we would continue with our program. Stay tuned.
Are you an institution or individual? Do you intend to organize a memorable event to be archived for future reference? Then look no further than AAU Studios because it's your best bet. With our spacious studio and state-of-the-art media equipment such as 4K Panasonic video cameras, KinoFlow lights, assorted microphones, live streaming machines and others, you are sure to get the best of production. Visit us at Trinity Avenue, East Legon, adjacent the National Accreditation Board, or contact the AAU studio via the following addresses: info@aau.org, AAUTV@aau.org, Ransford@aau.org. Alternatively, you can call us on 0244 185 998 or 0244 693 342.
Welcome back to Impact Stories. My name is Irene Dufie Addai, and I am privileged today to be the host of this program. Prof, thank you so much for joining us, and I am privileged to interview you here. And before we start with the interview, I wanted to find a little bit about yourself. And it was about 25 pages. So I would want to leave you for you to do that for us. And so we want to know more about you just from your background, where you were born, your siblings, and then your parents. Who are they?
Okay, I was born in a place called Machakos in Kenya.
Right.
It's about 60 kilometers from where we are, from Nairobi. And my parents, one of them for many years was a politician in Kenya.
Okay.
Some of these founders of politics in Africa. My mother was a teacher. Can you believe it? Since 1946.
That's a long time ago.
That's a long time, yes, yes. And I have 6 sisters. I'm their only brother.
Right.
So you can imagine how spoiled I am.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Prof, we want to know more about your childhood. Where did you start your elementary school? Who are some of your classmates? Are you still in touch with them?
I started my primary school all the way in 1961. And that was a school not very far from our home in Machakos. What is very interesting is my mother was also a teacher in the same school.
Okay.
And some of my friends are still around. We are still communicating.
That's interesting.
Yes, yes, absolutely, which is important.
Right.
In fact, although we met a little later, one of my closest friends at that childhood is also a lecturer in this department.
Right.
So you can see we have maintained a very close relationship. And I think that is typical everywhere. People maintain relationship for long, since childhood.
Right.
Yes.
So growing up, who was your mentor? Who were you mentoring?
I think firstly I would say my parents, really, for bringing me up. I found my father with incredible collection of reading material books. You know, things like the Britannica Encyclopedia.
Right.
The entire collection of Shakespeare. Can you imagine? So with that type of background, then you have a lot of interest in learning, in education, in reading very early. And I think that was the case with me. Okay. I think he had studied earlier in the UK, so I collected a lot of books. I think more books than I ever did. But he's late now. Both my parents are late.
Right.
Yes.
So growing up to see your father being a politician and then also like reading, in a way shaped how you'd also chose some of your careers that you've had.
I think to some extent, yes, but not in politics.
Okay.
As you can see, my entire life has been in academic world.
Right.
But to some extent, really, politics is everything, isn't it?
Right.
Whatever you do, there is a bit of politics here and there. I learned a lot of that when you deal with students.
Right.
You know, students, you have to know a lot of politics to manage the issues that they confront, that they face, and indeed even yourself throughout. So I think my mentors at that early stages, my parents, were important. I think also the environment, we had a situation where you started going to school, nursery schools early. Also you went to what we used to call Christian education early. So the church also started becoming an important influencer in how you perceive things.
Right.
So I think all those were very important at my early development as a child.
Right.
Yes.
So more on your, we will call the junior high school, senior high school to the university. What you started in the senior high school, was it the same that you entered the universities with, the programs that you were doing? And what shaped why you chose that particular course you did at the university?
Generally, when in the case of Kenya you go to primary school, it's standard for everybody what you read. Subjects like biology, physics, chemistry. Very early on, they are not even that specific. They are very general sciences. They become more specific as you go to junior secondary school, upper secondary school. Subjects like religious education, subjects like history, geography, they are standard across the schools. And at that point, I don't think one is very clear about the far future, what you want to specialize in. As you go through secondary school, then you start becoming aware of the variety of professions you could join.
Right.
Many. From the popular ones like the medicine, the laws, the agricultures. In my case, to come to the university, I chose to come to study land economics.
Okay.
Yes. And maybe because we came from an agricultural area, so there was land to be used, to be managed. And that may have affected, to some extent, my choice of what to do.
Okay.
Yes.
So coming from an agricultural background, that triggered your interest in land economics?
I think definitely, because you are keen on utilization of land, how best it can be utilized.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you do land economy still in your master's program?
I started with the undergraduate program. The program here was called Bachelor of Arts in Land Economics. I studied that for 3 years. I proceeded immediately to my master's program. That was in the UK at the University of Reading. I did also master's now, specialized more in urban land issues and more in land evaluation, land appraisal, as it was called. Urban economics, all those we are related at that level. And I finished my master's still concentrating on what I had started at the lower levels of university education. And finally, with respect to university education, I did my PhD at the University of Cambridge, again in the UK, and still continued the same studies in land economy.
So why not in Kenya but in London?
I think to start with, in Kenya we do not have postgraduate programs of that specialization. Yes, so you had to look for them anywhere in the world. Initially I was keen to go to the US, but I got admitted master's in the University of Reading in the UK.
Right. After your PhD, did you do some works in the UK?
Actually, as soon as I finished my studies in the UK, firstly undergraduate, secondly postgraduate, master's, then
Right.
PhD,
Right.
I came back home. What we had done, as soon as I finished my bachelor's degree at the University of Nairobi, I joined a staff development program at the level of a tutorial fellow. That is the
Right.
lowest,
Right.
where basically you just assist senior lecturers in supporting junior students, especially in tutoring. So by the time I went for my master's, I was already a member of academic staff at the University of Nairobi, but at the very bottom.
Right.
I had no idea I would go to the very top, certainly not.
Yeah.
Then, as soon as then I finished my master's, I came home briefly,
Right.
and I became then a lecturer because I had the qualifications, and I started doing research. Then I returned for my PhD after 2 years.
After 2 years.
After 2 years, and as soon as I finished my PhD, I came back home.
What was the reason behind it? Because normally people like you, when they go, they find it very difficult to come back, especially looking at the conditions they
Yes.
enjoy over there. They normally don't want to come back. So,
Surprisingly, I had no difficulties at all, and I got the impression is a lot of the people who were alongside me that time, we were keen to come back home. Come back home to continue supporting our universities, to continue working for the country. At no time did I ever envision I will actually work in the UK or elsewhere.
okay.
I could go to visit, I could go to conferences and even short-term programs.
Right.
But my main interest was simply to come back home and participate in the development of our country,
Right.
and generally our continent, because I think it needed us. It still needs us.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are done with your school. We want to talk more on your world of work.
Yes.
We know you've worked in various fields, from the government to the universities and all of that. Which of the job do you think you've done that was so satisfying for you? Because we can't list them all. There are so many. But which of them did you really enjoy doing?
That's a difficult one. In my view, I've actually enjoyed literally everything I have done.
Right.
The small and the big. I haven't ranked which is the best.
Yeah.
But I think throughout, as a teacher, as a lecturer, as a researcher, I've enjoyed that throughout my working at the University of Nairobi. As you have noted, I've also been privileged to move a little bit from the research and academic to join administration.
Right.
And how does one join administration? I think those who are in charge of appointments see some potential of a lecturer or a senior lecturer or a professor who can support administration by being a chairman of a department to start with.
Right.
From chairman of a department, after some time, dean of a faculty or director of a school. And it goes on and so on. Later you become the principal of a college. You proceed to become a deputy vice chancellor.
Right.
And to me, which is really God's blessings and anything else, finally you become the vice chancellor.
Yeah.
I had incredible privilege to have walked all those stages. As I still did my research work, did my teaching, did the supervision of postgraduate programs. And the more you go up, you concentrate more now on the management aspects of the institution. In our case, the University of Nairobi. So there you were. A lot of it I don't think is very strategic in long-term planning. And that time you were just appointed. These days, actually, you have to apply.
Apply to be.
But those times you were identified by those who were managing the institution.
Okay.
During our time, from the level of the principal of a college, a deputy vice chancellor, and the vice chancellor, you are appointed by the president of the country. Yes. A little lower to be dean of a faculty, which I was dean of. This faculty, actually, it was a faculty, it wasn't a school. That one is elected by the academic staff.
Right.
I don't know what they saw in me, but they thought maybe I should provide the necessary academic leadership in the school.
Right.
Yes.
Prof, we'll break here and we'll go for a short break. When we'll come back, we'll still continue discussion.
Thank you, yes.
This is Impact Stories on AAU TV. In case you just tuned in, you've missed a lot, and so you need to go back and start watching again. This is Impact Stories with Professor Crispus Kiamba. We'll go for a short break, and when we'll come back, we'll continue with his achievements, some of his researches, and then his personal life. Thank you.
Are you an institution or individual? Do you intend to organize a memorable event to be archived for future reference? Then look no further than AAU Studios, because it's your best bet. With our spacious studio and state-of-the-art media equipment such as 4K Panasonic video cameras, KinoFlow lights, assorted microphones, live streaming machines, and others, you are sure to get the best of production. Visit us at Trinity Avenue, East Legon, adjacent the National Accreditation Board, or contact the AAU studio via the following addresses: info@aau.org, aautv@aau.org, ransford@aau.org. Alternatively, you can call us on 0244 185 998 or 0244 693 342.
Welcome back. This is Impact Stories on AAU TV, the voice of higher education. We are today celebrating Professor Crispus Kiamba, who is a former Vice Chancellor of University of Nairobi. Prof, before we went on the break, we were talking about how you started working from the departments right through to the highest position in the university, that is being the Vice Chancellor, which I know it's not just a position of privilege, but a position that you have gotten through, you got through your hard work and resilience. But Prof, looking through your works that you've done, you've done a lot of researches which we can't even count. Probably you can, but we can't because they are enormous. Which of the researches that you did felt that this had an impact on Kenya and its development?
Well, some of my research, at least quite a lot of it, was on the area of land economy or land economics, in the areas of land policies for the country, in the areas of urban policies for the country. So have done a lot of work in that, a lot of work also in the areas of how do you value land, either for sale or for better utilization, or just to lease it. Yes, so I've done a lot of work in that. Later, I did a lot of other work in areas that are not necessarily urban or land economics. Because later I developed a lot of interest in higher education, in science, technology policies, but that comes much later. So at those early stages, really I concentrated on those academic areas that I went to school, to university to study. Yes.
So Prof, on the background of it, we know you had risen to the highest position in the university, but you stopped and then went to work for the government. And also you held such an important position in the cabinet. Can you give us a little more on that?
From the position of the Vice Chancellor of the university, I was appointed, before I went to the government, as the Secretary and the Chief Executive of Kenya's Commission for Higher Education. Now it's called these days Commission for University Education. Then it was called Commission for Higher Education. This is the commission that is responsible for accreditation and quality assurance of the total higher education sector. And I was there for 1 year and a half.
Okay.
I thought I would stay there for much longer. I had no idea somebody else was thinking differently. So then in 2005, towards the end of 2005, the president of the country appointed me as a permanent secretary.
Right.
Initially to go and establish the Ministry of Science and Technology. Yes.
So you are the pioneer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. When that ministry was established in Kenya, I went there as the permanent secretary. Obviously, there was also the minister at the political level,
right.
but at our level, we were really the chief executives, the people responsible for good administration of the ministries. So I stayed there, once again, not for very long, for 1 year and a half approximately.
Okay.
Then the Ministry of Science Technology was combined with higher education.
Right.
So in 2008, the ministry was called the Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Technology.
Right.
So I was reappointed and continued as the permanent secretary. And I was there up to 2013.
That is quite impressive.
Yes, and that meant then managing the entire higher education sector, universities, the total middle level.
Right,
yes.
And I'm very privileged to be interviewing you. Right. We know being there, you have a lot of awards, and we can't even talk about all of them, but I would want to talk about the highest one by the president, the commander-in-chief of this noble country. How did you feel when you got that award? I just want to know what was running through your mind when you got that award.
You're excited that, say, the president recognizes your contribution to national development. Actually, I got 2 awards, one by President Moi, who preceded the later one, President Kibaki.
Yeah.
An award we call the Moran of the Burning Spear.
Right.
And largely just for contribution to the development and management of university in the country. Later, I won it was now the chief of the Burning Spear. I think it meant I came from slightly a Moran to now the chief.
Right.
And again, it was largely combination of both management of higher education and science and technology policies in the country, recognized by the president, then Mwai Kibaki, much later. But sometimes along there, I also got recognized actually by the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
The Association of Commonwealth Universities, where I won one of the annual awards of the Commonwealth Universities Association, and again for contribution this time to Commonwealth University and Science Technological Development.
Right.
Yes.
Right, Prof, we know you are still writing. You've written a lot, and you are still writing. Are you ever going to stop writing?
I would think certainly I have no intention. But I mean, as you grow older, you can get involved in many things that you even never imagined you would.
Right.
And I think that is in order.
Yeah.
At the moment, I have got involved a lot in the areas of science, technology, policy, in the areas of course, university development, higher education policies. So we've been doing quite a lot of work on that. We've actually done some work with the Association of African Universities in this regard.
Yeah.
We've done quite a lot of work with the World Bank.
Yeah.
You perhaps are aware of some of the projects that Association of African Universities involved, like ACE.
Yeah.
I was part of that right from the beginning. The PASET projects of the World Bank. I'm still in the advisory groups of that project. Yes, so it still continues.
Right. Prof, you have a lot in you, and so I want to know, who are you mentoring? Because you just can't be there like that.
Oh, definitely.
Who it is you are mentoring?
The best people you mentor are your students.
Right.
Yes, throughout. right from their undergraduate studies through their postgraduate studies, their PhD studies, and also to a great extent your colleagues in the teaching, in the research, in the university profession, even in the management. Some of them junior staff, others as senior as you are, but you mentor each other. So that has continued. I've also had the opportunity working with the government to mentor a lot of people in the areas of just ensuring we manage our educational institutions better, our science and technology strategies better. We had the opportunity around 2012 in the country to start 12 universities. And that the responsibility of managing the process on behalf of the government squarely laid on my shoulders as a permanent secretary, but with the total team that assisted in doing the process. So all those people, you create a mentoring environment for all of them. Yes.
I think
of course, I have 2 daughters I made. I must never forget that.
Yeah. There is a lot to you, and there is a lot more that when we sit here, it will take us the whole day to talk about. But we want to know a little bit about you personally.
Yes.
Who is behind Professor Kiamba?
Who is behind? My family.
Yes.
Really, one is very fortunate when you have a great family. I mentioned to you earlier my parents, and both of them are late. In my local language, we say they have gone to heaven.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I'm married. And my wife happens to be also a professor in this university. Can you get it better?
Well, I mean.
So she's been very important in my life. We support one another. I have 2 daughters. Yes. And both of them are quite mature now. They're working. And they're great inspiration, definitely. And I hope I, in turn, inspire them to do better.
To do
because
more.
If a parent did not inspire their children, something would be the matter. Yes. But the inspiration, as far as I'm concerned, is mutual. Yes.
So you look very young for your
I know?
age. What do you do to keep active? Because you are so fit. What do you do? 65 years.
I thought my hair looks quite white.
No, but you look fit.
I keep fit. I think that is important. And my wife happens to be in the areas of nutrition. So you can imagine the type of nutrition I get at home. One of my daughters is also a complete vegetarian. So she demands we eat well over and above my wife. So I think that is an environment that naturally enables one to have a healthy life. I was very sporty when I was at the university. I haven't continued most of that, but I still do little sports. I play golf, not as much as I would like to, in one of the clubs called the Karen Country Club in Nairobi. I would like to play more, but I don't have the time. But perhaps that is an excuse. I think one can create the time.
So who is your favorite musician, and what kind of music do you listen to?
Ask me a sports person. I was going to say Tiger Woods. But back to music. I'm not particularly musical, I think. But over time, I've had different people who have said their music is really great. There's a group in South Africa called, God, what are they called? A very interesting group. Imagine I can't remember them. This is age, in case you thought. Freshly ground. Have you heard about them?
No, really.
You haven't?
Yeah. I'll go and look for them.
There's a lady called Sade. Have you heard of Sade?
No. Oh, yes, Sade. Yes.
She's the parent is from, is it Nigeria?
Nigeria, yes.
From
Sade
Scotland.
Edu, yes. She's American.
There you are. Oh, I like her music a lot. I like a lot of gospel music also. Really, and of course, a lot of Kenyan music, even without not necessarily knowing who are the singers.
Well, since it's gospel music, then you're a Christian.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
So, our big and final question, Prof. Crispus Kiamba. Do you think where you've reached now, you are fulfilled in life?
I don't think I would say I am. My impression is that there's still so much to do. There's still so much to do. You've said I'm young. I think I am.
Yeah, you are.
I'm 65 this year.
Yeah.
So I still think there's a lot to do at the university area of research. There's still a lot to do. Supervising students, postgraduate students especially, there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
Even undergraduate students. And even in life outside there's so much to do. People say the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
In my world, the limit is beyond the skies.
Yeah, I don't think you even have a limit. Thank you, Prof, for joining us. It has been an interesting one. And putting all of this in 30 minutes is fairly it's not even good, because you have a lot of things to say. But we appreciate your time. We appreciate you telling us about your life and how you started and where you are going and where you are still going. So thank you for...
Well, thank you very much.
For joining us.
This has been very useful for me to reflect, actually.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, and a lot of thanks to Association of African Universities, my great friends.
Yeah.
Ransford knows it.
All right, thank you, Prof. Yes. This has been Impact Stories with Professor Crispus Kiamba, who was a former Vice-Chancellor of University of Nairobi. Thank you for joining us. My name is Irene Dufie Addai, and I have been your host for today's program.